I think when we told our readers that we're going to interview you, and then we got lots of responses, and then we have lots of questions for you. Shall we conduct the interview in Chinese? 我们用中文做可以吗？
其实我想最好还是用英文。
Okay, we'll do.
英文比我的中文好多了。
你的中文是很好的。We'll do the interview in English.
Okay, that's good.
Great. By the way, where did you learn your Chinese? Did you learn Chinese in college?
No, when I was in college, there were no departments of Chinese. I was at a small liberal arts college. So I began studying Chinese after I got my master's degree at the University of California, Berkeley, and continued studying it off and on.
Off and on. But you visit China quite often,
yes,
right?
Yes. So I also studied Chinese in China at Peking Normal University.
Oh, Peking Normal University. Wow.
And I also, most of my research is based on interviews with Chinese people. So just by listening to their stories, I listen to Chinese much better than I speak it.
Wow. Yeah, you describe your role in the book, something like a listener.
Right.
Remember, you once said that you are like the narrating Iris Murdoch's book, The Philosopher's Pupil.
Right.
And then your goal in life is to listen to the stories of Chinese people and write it down in a way that makes sense to both Americans and the Chinese, right? All Westerners and the Chinese.
That's exactly right.
So how do you achieve that? Let's use Chairman Mao's physician as an example. How did you get involved in the book?
Well, I got involved in that book by accident. I came home one afternoon when I was living in New York, and there was a voicemail on my telephone from Andrew Nathan, who's a very well-known, famous, respected professor of political science at Columbia University. And he said that I was about to get a call from the senior editor at Random House, whose name was Jason Epstein, with an offer that he hoped I would not refuse, and I better talk to Andy first. So I called Andy. No, I didn't call Andy, because the editor had already called me and left. The second message on my machine was a message from Jason Epstein, who was the senior editor and vice president of Random House, asking me to call him. So first I called Andy, then I called Jason Epstein. And what he said is that he had recently received a manuscript from a man who claimed to be Chairman Mao's personal physician for the last 22 years of his life. And if he really was what he said he was, and had been where he says he was when he says he was, that this is as close as we have ever been to a dictator, and will ever get to a dictator. And I remember he said, this is Thucydides, you have to do this. So I said, well, I think I need to see what material you have. So within 45 minutes, a manuscript had been delivered to my apartment, and it was the translation of the manuscript that Li Zhisui had already done in Chinese. And the first scene was the first scene in the book as it was finally published, which is Mao's death. I'd always wondered how Mao died. In September of 1976, I was on my way to teach my first class at Fordham University on Chinese politics when I heard on the radio that Mao had died.
So you were in New York City when you heard about it,
right,
the news.
Right. And I walked into class, and instead of introducing the class, I started introducing Mao. So I sort of worked the whole thing backwards. I started with the end and went back to the beginning in that class. But I'd always wondered how he died. And there it was. Boy, it was quite a dramatic story of his death.
So, in other words, when you first heard about the book, and there was a manuscript,
yes.
And then Dr. Li Zhisui, Chairman Mao's personal physician, by that time he had moved to the United States.
Right.
He lived in Illinois, Carroll Stream, right?
Carroll Stream? Yes, that is. I'm trying to remember.
It is a suburb in the Chicago area, since I live in Chicago.
Okay. And it's also far enough away. At that time there was a limit on how far outside of consular areas the Chinese officials could go. So this was outside the consular area. It was a
Oh,
place
that's
where
interesting.
legally Chinese officials in the United States could not visit him.
Also, I did not realize there's that limitation.
There was still at that time. I think I think it doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist anymore. Oh, I see, the carol string. So, in other words, that he had a Chinese manuscript. He had written down
Right.
what he wanted to say.
Right.
And then somebody, a Chinese professor,
Yes,
he translated that from Chinese to English.
exactly. And that was what was given to Jason Epstein.